Hello, Ryan here, and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday. This is a weekly show which covers all of the news from the week just past. Be sure to subscribe if you like what you see, and let's get on with it. This week, we check out new updates coming to Alpha 3.18, the roadmap gets more features, plus we have an all-vehicle Q&A which covers many topics about all things ships and vehicles. So this week's Inside Star Citizen took a look at two locations getting some love for Alpha 3.18. These are Security Post Korea and Klesha Prison. So kicking off with Korea, the mission feature team wanted to bring Korea back to its former glory, as since they added the ability for players to remove crime stats from underground facilities, it barely sees any action anymore. Now, Korea was intended to be the location for Crusader Security to use as their base of operations, and for 3.18, Security are moving back in to get the station more to where it was intended to be, which is this PvP hotspot. Now, firstly, they are beefing up the external security with lots of turrets to fend off any unwanted pilots. Security NPCs are on the landing pad as well as inside, and they will open fire if you're not supposed to be there. And if you do go there and you kill a certain number of these security members, a security chief will spawn in, and once you kill him, you will have to find the tablet on him with a security code which will allow you to trigger the contraband dispenser, which they say is a device that goes into Korea's storage facility and pulls out contraband that has been deposited by law enforcement. So it's basically a space station jump town. Now, whether these items that you receive are actual items taken from players, or maybe the Quanta flying around on the background, I don't know, but it does sound like it is intended to be items confiscated from players, which include all various drugs, and they will also be making more highly prohibited goods. Now, you will still be able to remove your crime stat from Korea, but one huge change coming in 3.18 is that you won't be able to remove your crime stat from underground facilities anymore. Now, I'm still on the fence as to whether this is a good idea or a bad idea. At first, I did think it was a very bad idea, especially as I would often get a crime stat many times not through my own fault, like a bug. But more recently, most of my crime stats have come from my own negligence of accidentally maybe taking out a security guard because I wasn't paying attention, or I didn't identify the targets properly, which means more people will end up serving their smaller crime stats in prison, which will actually be a good thing with the upcoming changes to prisons that I will get to in a second. So really thinking about it, I think it could be a good idea to have one location, as it will create almost a permanent dynamic event location, but it should also encourage players on both sides of the law to plan more, to think and approach things more carefully, so they don't have to go through the process of either dealing with the crime stat removal or going to prison. And Star Citizen is always intended as a thinking person's game, so rewarding those who take the time to plan and prepare. But that said, having one location to remove your crime stat, as I say, I'm still on the fence. I'm more than happy to give it a go in the alpha and see if this makes sense with Stanton, but I did hear a suggestion that maybe having a place to remove your crime stat around each planet would be a better option, especially as each planet is owned by a different corporation. That would kind of make sense. But as I say, let's give it a go, see how it plays. If it is a nightmare, then they could readdress it. But so long as bugs are not causing crime stats, then I am more than happy for it to just be my own negligence and serving my time. Anyway, moving on. Once Korea does go under attack, which is when a certain amount of NPC security get killed, it will trigger an ECN alert mission for players to come and help retake Korea from the criminals. So ultimately this is creating a great location for players who want PvP to come and fight it out, while I suppose alleviating the pressures of PvP in the rest of Stanton, creating a lucrative reason to go there for players on both sides of the law without relying on dynamic events to be happening, plus encouraging players to serve their time in prison if they are committing crimes. Instead of going to prison and just logging off or waiting around, there will be many more opportunities to reduce your sentence or just spend time with more to do inside. Now, as I say, whether these changes are going to have a good effect or a bad effect in the verse, we will have to wait and see, but I can see why they are making these choices, and I am intrigued to see how the players will react to them in-game. Personally though, I would love to see Korea get tied into the cargo refactor, where players could be dropping off contraband that they have taken from criminals, or found in wrecks, or maybe transporting large consignments of contraband from Korea to a planetary location for destruction, which could then trigger a heist mission for players watching closely. But also it was mentioned that the Korea station will be getting an overhaul visually, which I am actually really looking forward to seeing how that looks and feels. So, for Klesha Prison, there are a lot of changes coming to this in 3.18 as well, and currently if you get sent to prison, you either just wait, you mine, or you do a basic repair mission, or you try and escape, which is not enough options, and they want more options. And also, if there's bugs stopping you from being able to drop off your mined goods anyway, you can't reduce your sentence. Now, firstly, they are planning to add NPC prisoners into the caves, which would allow you to kill them or loot them for items to reduce your sentence, which I really like the idea of having a population in there. They will also add more sandbox options to earn merits, like retrieving items from the various stashes that are already inside the caves, and then returning them and contraband items to earn merits back, which can then be spent reducing your sentence. They're also looking into ways to have players taking out violent inmates to reward them for helping to clean up the prison and provide model prisoners more ways to legally pay off their crimes. Bit strange asking a prisoner to murder another prisoner, but so be it. For those wanting to cause a ruckus inside the prisons though, they are adding new missions where you can head to a particular location in a certain cave where there's a black spot, and this will allow outside entities to contact you and ask you to work for them inside the prison, and you will be rewarded well for this. Now personally, I love these expansions for the prisons, and as stated before, with only one location to get rid of your crime stat, players are more likely going to go to prison, so providing more gameplay and missions for them is going to be important, especially as there are now 100 players on a server, not to mention the inclusion of NPC prisoners. So having a pretty populated prison will feel much more interesting, creating much more danger and less danger at the same time, as you may be able to blend in better, but ultimately providing content for players serving their time so they don't get bored. So all in all, a lot of decent updates in two areas of the verse for 3.18, which I think over time will have a good impact on everyone's experience, and the alpha is certainly becoming more of a game that requires planning and preparation, which I am very happy about. Whether having one location to remove a crime stat is a good idea or a bad idea, we'll have to wait and see as they trial this out, but I'm all for testing it. Anyway, that was Inside Star Citizen. Let us move on. So this week's Star Citizen Live was another all-vehicle Q&A, which is pretty close from the previous vehicle Q&A, and there was a lot of questions and answers repeated from the previous one, but there was still plenty of interesting information. Now the first question is, will landing gear ever get decoupled from wings? Now they say yes, it's just a current tech limitation that is quite low down on the resolve list or priority list, so it will get done, and there are some near-term stuff coming in that may actually fix it in the meantime. Next question is to do with the Caterpillar cargo lifts and when will they function. Now this was something TechArt was looking into the other day to see if there was anything that they could do to resolve this, but as of yet they haven't given us any conclusion. So it's not a simple fix, but they will get there eventually, and hopefully this TechArt team will find a good way to get them working as soon as possible. Next up we have Landing Assist UI. When will it come? Will it come? And yes, they have plans to bring something to help with situational awareness when landing, but at this time they're not entirely sure what. So the next question is, are smaller ships in a certain profession intended to be a stepping stone to the larger ships in the same profession, or will there be benefits to having the smaller ships over the larger ships? And they say it's kind of a yes and no answer. Some ships are stepping stones to progressing through that career, but it's not the only way. Also, there will be some advantages to using the smaller ship versus the larger ship, like accessibility for example. One example they gave was bases, and how potentially an end goal, instead of a larger ship, could be a base. So a refinery, you could have the Expanse refinery ship, or eventually you could build a base refinery, so instead of it being a ship altogether, you've got a ground location. But they did say in the future there will likely be other larger refinery ships, so they're definitely not done in that regard. Now they say the ship sizing is somewhat of a gating system, but it is not as simple as bigger means better. and there will be advantages and disadvantages to all sizes of ship. Next question, are there any updates on drones and the ships that use them? So no, there is nothing specific to talk about. However, there are multiple scenarios in Squadron 42's side missions, they say, that will require drones, so they are on schedule for the near future to do kind of a lightweight ship intelligent flight control system, or IFCS, that will be remote control, which will kind of act as the foundational tech for that. So nice to hear that the tech is going to get some attention soon. Not that we're going to see that in the PU anytime soon, but it is the starting point for them to start kicking off the whole world of drones and developing them. Now, next question is, what is going on with ship modularity? Now, there has been a few team changes of late and move-arounds, and the vehicle feature team, who are now the team to work on this, have got a lot of other things to do first. And with this resource network coming along, so basically ship engineering, it requires a lot of vehicle changes. So modularity was halted, as the engineering stuff is better to get in first, and he did say the work on modularity is practically done and will come once engineering is in and ready. Now, personally, as much as I am very excited for ship modularity, I am more excited for the resource management system, as it has a huge impact for basically everyone. If you own a ship, you will be interacting with its life support, its relay nodes, its components. So I can see why they prioritized that, and I am actually happy that they did. But Jared did say that we will be checking out more of the resource management in a couple of months, so likely Citizencon, which, come to think about it, is around 2 months away now. Pretty crazy. And as they have said for Citizencon, we won't see a full keynote, but it does sound like there will be select demonstrations of certain systems that they're working on, with engineering being one of them. Now, next question is, what is still needed tech and resource-wise before they can get capital ships in the game? Now, for example, the Idris and Javelin, that will come after Squadron 42, as they are holding on to those specifically to reveal them in the single-player campaign. But in regards to capital ships in general, there is still a bunch of optimizations that they do want to do, and they also want to make sure that it's not just another big ship in the game. They really want more multi-crew options, like again this resource network system, so that people aren't just standing around on board with nothing to do. Also, docking is important for this, and they are wanting to get more ships in-game that have the actual gameplay associated with them. Sort of similar question to that is, what is the plan to get the older ships in-game? And this mostly just comes down to priority, scope, and resources. And now, whenever they do start a ship, they try to see it through to completion. Not every time, of course, but they also, as mentioned before, want to get the gameplay in so that the ship and gameplay come together, because as much as I don't mind them bringing in ships, especially from the backlog, even without their gameplay, I did always enjoy getting the ship in and just enjoying the ship regardless of whether we had the gameplay or not. But understandably, this would then mean they have to go back and redo a lot of that ship to get it hooked up with the gameplay when it does come along. So I'm happy for them to bring in legacy ships once the gameplay is there to support it, as it does improve and expand the gameplay in the verse in the near term when they actually create a ship for stuff we already have. Next question is, vehicles with the Atlas platform don't share paints. Will this be fixed? And they said they will sort that out one day, they're just not sure when. Will the Mercury Star Runner get a second entrance? And they did say that it would be nice, and they do have the space for that second entrance, it's just a matter of when. Next question, what do CIG intend to do with vehicle flair, like customizing and internal furnishings? Now, the intended goal, end goal, is to allow players to basically customize their ships to the heart's content. And for this year, they do want to develop the customization plans for what they want. So not necessarily the actual customization itself, just the plans of what they want to achieve. Now, they do want players to eventually dress the internal elements of the ships. During the Life in the Verse Citizencon show last year, it was mentioned that when it came to decorating the internal outposts with furniture and such, I remember them saying they created a furniture catalogue to help the developers world build, and eventually allowing players to use this idea as well. So I am expecting when the time comes and we can customize our ship interiors or our homestead interiors, they will have manufacturers that have specific styles, and then you can peruse through their offerings in a catalogue on your Mobi Glass maybe, picking out what you want. Now, they did say that persistent entity streaming, which is what's coming in 3.18, will allow us to place anything in our ships and have it remain there. We will be able to decorate our ships with items we find around during our travels and place them there, and they will persist. And this also means no longer placing an item in defined spaces according to the item port system. As I say, you can literally put an item down, and unless it is destroyed or moved, that will stay there for play session after play session. Now, the resource network system that they're working on will actually allow us to place, say, a desk lamp in an area, and as long as that area has power going to it, the light will be able to be switched on. So I do think when it comes to it, they are creating a system that allows us to literally choose and place anything we want anywhere on our ships or in our homes, so long as we can get them in there, as well as potential furniture options. So it sounds like there will be very few limitations in this whole system once everything is said and done. Now, next question, what happened to naming our ships? Now, they say when they rolled it out, the font scaling didn't work, so they stopped rolling this out publicly while they worked on a good solution, and they did say that every ship that has been rolled out since has the tech enabled. Now, you'll be able to tell if your ship supports it, as they will have serial numbers popping up in various places that use this tech. So nice to get an update on this, and they did say that once it's resolved, this whole scaling problem, the ability to name our ships will be ready to go. Next question, have you considered food trucks? Now, they have, and they would love to do a food truck style ship, and this idea is actually on the big list of internal ideas, as it is a valid ship idea, and is quite high up on that list as well. So it's just a case of finding time and a place. Now, I really like this idea, having like a big Benny's Reliant flying around locations, serving food, just like you see in The Fifth Element. And even if there are no players wanting to actually fly those ships, although I'm sure there will be loads of players who will, NPCs could fly them and feed the masses. Or, as a player, you could probably amass a fleet of food trucks, hire NPCs to fly around for you, delivering food, kind of creating a food empire. I don't know. On a side note though, I would love to see this internal list of other ships they want. I bet that's got a lot that we are asking for. But it's also important to remember that the game, when it is officially released, will have decades of a lifespan, and so the potential for any type of vehicle, ship, boats, all sorts. Next question, what are your thoughts on an artillery ground vehicle? And they really want to do this, and it will likely make more sense to have a forward observer vehicle for relaying targets to your artillery, and Chris Roberts actually wants this as well. Now, this I think is a great option to accompany all of the other various ground combat vehicles, having a kind of stealthy small vehicle for maybe a two-man crew to laser target for the artillery to fire on. It's going to be quite a moment though to witness when all is completed for combined warfare, seeing all the potential large-scale scenarios for ground war just on a planet's surface. It's going to be pretty mental to watch that. Next question, will it be a lot of work to get the older ships up to the current standards, or have they all been designed to easily add the tech in when it's ready? Now, this is a bit of both. The earlier ships do need a lot more work than the more modern ships, as you can expect, as most ships built now are already set up and ready to go with much of the necessary tech requirements. And this is pretty much what the gold standard pass is for. It's to bring the old ships to the current standard with all the latest tech improvements and so forth, so that they're all at the same point and ready to apply the rest of the upcoming tech. Next question, will ships with docking collars on the top be reworked, or will there be a way to use them? Now, ideally they do say that they want the docking collars to be on the side, and during the gold standard pass, as we have seen with ships like the Retaliator, they have changed them to the side. But if not, they will have ways of getting us out through the top, like gravity controls, or maybe some form of ladder. Now, a bit of a fire round for the different ships. The Hull C being the first one, it is close to being complete, and they have spent time bringing it up to the metrics. It's very close, with a couple of artists just finishing it off. The Ranger, which is a ground bike, a two-wheeled ground bike, this is blocked by the two-wheel tech, or the lack of the two-wheel tech. They have done some work to scope out what is needed in order to get this tech working, and they did pitch that to Chris, but versus other things that do need doing, they prioritized the other stuff. Now, for the 600i rework, the concept for the rework is complete, and after an upcoming event, likely Citizencon, they will see if they can show it off. And the same kind of goes for the Polaris. It's had its concept rework completed, but there are currently no people working on either outside of their recently completed reconcepting. Next is the RSI Apollo. Now, the team who will be working on this are finishing off the Corsair at this time, and there are a few other options of what they could work on next, but the chances are it will be the Apollo, but if not, this will be reflected on the progress tracker. So fingers crossed they prioritise the Apollo. Next question after that is the Retaliator rework, and they have done a lot of work getting the interior up to metrics with internal changes, as we have seen in a few Inside Star Citizens, but due to the lack of resources, it is on pause at this time. And then the final two ships, we have the Corsair and the Banu Merchantman, which they did say we will be updated on these throughout the year. As we have seen recently, both ships are coming along very well. And then the final question is there anything else? And they say the SRV, the Argo SRV tow truck, is coming along. The Crucible will get a reconcept pass when the time is ready for that. But don't worry, it'll still look like it does, but with the changes accounting for all the metrics and in-game changes since it was first released. And the Crucible, the Anvil Crucible, is kind of your ship repair ship that will fly around fixing up other people's ships. So that was actually quite an interesting Star Citizen Live, with some great updates on many of the ships and their features. Of course, there were a few repeats, but then we do get new backers all the time. This year, we should see some pretty cool vehicle features in the works, and I am looking forward to seeing them come to completion. And it does sound like Citizencon is the time when we're going to see the majority of this, but I know the focus from September onwards is Pyro and server meshing and 4.0. So how much of that will involve ship systems, we will have to wait and see. So also this week, there was a new plain truth post titled Lawville Lies, which delves into some possible shady activity from Hurston Dynamics. The roadmap was updated, which brought a few more very cool new features to the progress tracker. To learn more about what these changes are, I have linked my video covering the update in the description below. And finally, the Alpha 317.2 hotfix patch remains on the PTU, with the last PTU build being last Wednesday, so I do suspect that there will be more builds or even a potential live release for this hotfix patch sometime this week, and I'm hoping the sooner the better, as it is certainly in a much better state than the live build. So that brings us to the end of the show. If you do enjoy my content, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. Also, I am able to do this thanks to my very generous patrons and channel members. If you appreciate what I do and would like to help make it even better from as little as $1 a month, all of the links are provided below.